Now, I wasted a lot of time trying to fully learn Overwatch, and if I would have known these 20 things, I would have improved a lot quicker and would have had a much better experience climbing and grinding in Overwatch. So, we're going to break down 20 things I wish I knew when I started playing 2023 edition. But if you're looking to climb in Season 7 and beyond, then check out my private coaching where I've helped over 100 people get to Grandmaster, and you could be next, so check it out right now, and let's get started. Now, the first thing I wish I knew when I started is at the very beginning, it's actually better for you to play as many characters as you possibly can and fully learn the game. The idea here is that you're trying to understand how everything works and how everything works together. And by learning everything, it's going to make you better at the characters that you eventually do main because you know what every single character can do and you can respect those characters' abilities, their movement, their damage, and everything in between. That being said, after you've grinded the game for several hundreds of hours, at that point you want to narrow down your hero pool and try to maximize your time on a much narrower group of heroes. And the reason for this is because you get repetition on the various instances, the various maps, the various compositions, the various enemies that you're up against, and you get mechanical practice, positional practice, and just overall more compounded learning on the characters you really want to get good at. And one of the reasons it took me so long to improve in Overwatch or get to the rank that I desired is that I wanted to be good at everything, and I tried to be good at everything, and it really was a very slow journey. And I definitely could have reached my goals a lot faster if instead of doing that I would have specialized, although it did end up making me a better coach, so it was kind of lucky in that way. But for most people, it doesn't make sense to try to get good at every character if it takes you 10x the time to do so and get to the rank that you want to. Next up, I wish I knew that objectives are just means to an end. Every single person wants to play an objective. You want to push the cart, you want to quickly go to the points, and you want to stop an enemy from capturing a tick or anything like that. And this is what we naturally feel. This is what I naturally felt. But the thing you need to eventually understand is that objectives are far less important than the win condition of a fight and winning a team fight. And what I mean by that is if you push yourself onto the cart as 3 people, 5 people, whatever the case may be, or you always stack an objective or go to stop an opponent from getting any progress on an objective at the cost of putting yourself in a worse position with less options and less resources and less of an ability to win the fight, you are denying them a little bit of value in the short term, or gaining a little bit of value by moving the cart slightly faster in the short term, but you're missing out on the bigger picture. Now, the third thing I wish I knew when I started Overwatch is that counterpicking is not always the answer. And this probably also ties into the fact that I tried to learn every character. I was a counterpicker, and I counterpicked all the time, and I know a lot of you do as well, where every time you run into something, you're like, okay, I'm going to swap to this. Okay, I'm going to swap to that. Okay, I'm going to swap to this, that. You're always trying to find the most optimal character to deal with the situation. But there's a couple of problems with this. Number one, you are often just running away. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of ways to get value on a character outside of dealing with one specific problem, and most of the time there's still ways for you to carry from the characters you're playing. And I understand that there are some more optimal characters or some less optimal characters, but the problem is if you're always swapping, you're not learning how to adapt to these complex or difficult situations, and you're not getting good at all the characters because you're actually just always playing new characters, right? And the problem is, while being able to counter someone can get you the win in the moment, being flexible can get you the win in the moment, there are going to be a whole bunch of other games that what you need is not to be flexible, but to be extremely good at the characters that you mainly play. And I do think that sometimes people that counterpick too much run away from that, and run away from getting good at certain characters, and run away from trying to find an answer with the character, instead of walking into a situation and saying, how do I get value with my character here? How do I adapt my play to get value here? They're always thinking, oh, well, I'm already gonna swap off. Let's just go right back to spawn. Oh, they're playing this. All right, I'm gonna swap off, go back to spawn. And I do think that this actually can become a detriment to a player if they always do this and they never just stand their ground and just find value with the characters that they're confident in. The next tip I wish I knew when I started is that good positions mainly mean good options. And what I mean by that is I often preach play around cover, play around corners, play around walls, right? And the reason that you want these things, which I never fully understood before, is that it gives you options. If you are losing a fight, you can deny an enemy from peeking you. If you need to run away, you can dip out of the enemy line of sight. If you want to reload, if you want to get your cooldowns back, you have a piece of cover that you can utilize to prevent yourself from taking damage and just stopping a fight outright. And someone that is in the open means that they don't get to choose when the fight happens, but someone next to a piece of cover means that they get to decide when we're fighting. Like if I'm in a duel with you, if I have cover, I could say, all right, we're fighting right now. Oh, I'm losing. No, we're not fighting. Oh, you know what? I want to fight again. And you just get to stand there and you don't get to decide. Like, you can fight me when I want you to fight me, and maybe you'll win, but you don't get to choose when to fight me, right? And this is an option. And the more options you have, the more kills you get, the less you'll die, and the more games you'll win. Simple as that. Now, the fifth thing I wish I knew when I started Overwatch is that effective range is like one of the most important things to think about. If you don't know how to play a matchup, if you don't know what counters what, and you don't even know what to do, think about your effective range versus whatever opponent that you have problems with, right? What can your character do at what range, and what can your opposition do at what range? And try to find a disconnect where your character does what they want to do and the enemy character is less effective than you in that range, because every character has a range that they're most optimal in, right? And if you have like really short range and they have really far range, then you want to close that gap. That's a way that you're going to get value and they're not. If they have really close range and you have really far range, you want to make sure to keep your distance as much as possible and be careful of where they're routing. It seems super simple, but this applies to a lot of matchups, including tank matchups and DPS matchups. And if you learn this, you no longer have to think of like what counters what or how do I get value. Just think of your effective range and figure out how to play in your character's effective range that is different from the enemy's as much as possible, and you're going to get more value. Next up, something I really wish I knew when I started playing Overwatch is the wellness check. And what I mean by this is there's way too many fights that happen where you get some sort of advantage and everyone wants to push, right? But y'all all are weak. Low cooldowns, everyone's low health, and you all just kind of rush in there and the enemy gets trades out on you. 2 people die, 3 people die, and all of a sudden the fight that you had 2-3 people in an advantage, now all of a sudden you're at parity or you're even losing it. And what I like to call the wellness check is where you just pause, stop, take in that advantage. You got an advantage, but you're not in a situation where you can actually push. You get your health back, you get your resources back, your cooldowns back, and then you push, right? So you're making sure to give yourself a little bit of a delay in order to slow down a certain engagement so that you don't just allow the enemy to trade you out for free. And on the flip side of this, if the enemy team just killed one of your teammates and they're super weak and super low, you do not want them to be able to do a wellness check. So if you could actually punish them, if you could actually push them in the moment where they're low on resources, low on health, you could turn that back. But this is also just one of the many strategies you need to learn if you want to understand Overwatch strategically. Now, number 7, I wish I knew this. Mechanics matter. They just straight up do. Someone could know way less than you. They could play in terrible positions. They can have no understanding of the game, and they can come into Overwatch and roll you. It doesn't matter how much you've studied the game, how much you've learned. If they have better mechanics than you by a good margin, they're going to dominate you. And the reason is good mechanics triumph a lot of proper decision making. Because while proper decision making, taking the right fight at the right time. Oh, that person is low. That person is weak around the corner. I'm full health, full resources. I'm going to push that person. Game sense, that makes perfect sense. It's a super logical play, but if they freaking two-tap you in the head, it doesn't matter. Like, logic goes out the window. They have a much less chance of winning that, but if you don't have the mechanics to execute on your play, or if they have above average mechanics to counteract your rightful play, it just doesn't matter. So you need to make sure not to neglect your mechanics. And this is with everything. This is with the aim specific aspects of your character, the movement. This is also with your ultimates or certain abilities that are fundamentally different from other aspects of your kit, like Dragon Blade, Pulse Bomb, or Winston Primal. And it's super important that these are things that you're constantly developing throughout your entire journey in Overwatch, not something that you just get to a good enough point and you're just like, it's good. No, you always need better mechanics. Everyone would always be better with better mechanics. Like, there's no cap to your mechanics. Just get better. And it's an amplifying effect, so everything about your play will get better with better mechanics as well. Now, the ninth thing I wish I knew when I started playing Overwatch is that oftentimes ranked can be very frustrating, and oftentimes you're going to get disappointed. I can't tell you how many times I sat at the ceiling of a rank up, whether it was the Diamond rank up or the Masters rank up or the Grandmasters rank up. I can't tell you how many times I sat there and I was just frustrated. I was disappointed. Every time I couldn't get there. I couldn't get over the hump. But I was frustrated. I was mad. But the thing is, only when I endured through like all of these emotions did I finally get the rank that I wanted. All of us dream of just going on like a giant win streak and just ending up in a magical rank, but that just rarely happens. Most of the time, it's about how much can you endure the disappointment, the grind of ranked, and if you can endure, if you can look this disappointment, this just, really unfun situation at times in the face and say, I'm not going to think about you emotionally. I'm going to find a way to get better. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep grinding. You will eventually get what you want. Every single person without fail. If you grind enough and don't give up, you will get Grandmaster and beyond. So it's really only a battle with yourself and a battle with your own mindset. The next one, number 10, I think is super important, is equipment just matters, straight up. If you have bad equipment or bad internet, it's going to be very hard for you to climb. Now, it's not going to be impossible, but if you're rocking at like 30 frames per second, you're on a laptop that overheats, your internet cutting in and out, I don't care what the situation is, you're gonna have a much harder time than other people. And it's very important that at a base level, you get your equipment in order. You get your mouse, your keyboard, your controller, your TV, your monitor, your internet, all that stuff needs to be in order. And if you don't have that in order, realize that it's gonna be much more difficult for you to improve, for you to grind, and for you to climb than other people. And it's just that important. Like, I had a really, really hard time just learning how to play the game when I was on a laptop with shit internet. And it's gonna be the same for you. Now, number 11, the thing I wish I knew when I started playing is that bad duos are worse than soloing. And I have played this game for a very long time, even back, 2015. So how old was I? Freaking back in 2015. 8 years ago? What was I? 17, 18 when this game came out? Holy shit. But I played with a lot of different types of people, and sometimes you would duo with somebody that is kind of bringing you down. And you duo with them because they're good or whatever the case may be, but whether it's their ego, their negative attitude, or the constant blaming other people, it kind of makes you a worse person in a lot of ways, and it definitely ruins your experience. And I do want to make it clear that I know that sometimes grinding, really hard, sometimes gets lonely and you want someone to grind with you, right? I understand those feelings, but make sure that you're finding the right duo. And if you have someone that you just don't think is making you a better gamer, a better person, and giving you a better experience, I would highly suggest stepping away from that person, highly suggest trying to find the many other duos out there that would actually be a positive influence on your experience, a positive influence on your climb. But the 12th thing that I wish I knew when I started playing is that I needed to stop blaming others. And I used to sometimes blame other people, and sometimes I still do. I think all of us do at some point. We're only human. But it's really important that if you make it so every single game you come across, it's always someone else's fault, and you're never taking responsibility, then what you're saying is that you were good enough, right? Every game that you go into and you're finding someone else to blame on your team or whatever the case may be, you're saying, I was good enough to win this game, but I didn't because of my team. And the thing is, you can't have that mindset. And I'm not telling you to be super hard on yourself or beat up on yourself, but if you have the mindset that you are already good enough, like if you have the mindset that you've already done enough, then where's there to go from here? You're not taking a game as a learning opportunity. You're not trying to be better for the next game. You're wrapping that game up as, I should have won that game with my current skill level. And that's just not the mindset you can have. I don't care if you had a teammate that literally went AFK. Find something that you could have done better. Always find something you could have done better. Always find a play you could have done better. And I 100% promise you, if you do not get this mindset in your head, you will just not climb. You will flat out not climb. Take it from someone who used to have this mindset and was hard stuck for way too long. You need to look inward, drop the ego so that you can actually get better and gain real confidence. Now, along those same lines, number 13, Smurfs don't matter. I know everyone wants to kind of rant to death unranked to GM, and honestly, I do think it's kind of pretty trash content. I've dabbled in it myself, and I didn't really like it. But Smurfs are not what's keeping you in your rank. I mean, statistically, there's not that many out there because most of the ones that are good enough to just dominate a lobby climb very, very quickly. And in addition to that, you have a chance of getting them on your team as well, so they can't be responsible for all your losses. And most Smurfs, if I'm being honest with you, are Smurfs that are not smurfing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ranks above you, right? They're smurfing just a little bit above you because most people do it as an ego trip, right? If you're in plat, like high plat or low diamond, a masters player might come and smurf with you. But guess what? These are players that are beatable. These Smurfs do not win all the time. In fact, they often lose and it completely messes with their ego. And if you can just dig deep, find ways to find impact, think about why these players are getting so much value and do whatever you can. Win, lose, doesn't matter. You will become better. And eventually, with enough of these situations that happen, I promise you that you will become just as good as these players, if not better. I've lived through every rank, grinding, dealing with Smurfs at every rank. And yeah, I mean, at some point, I probably got better than most of the people that smurfed on me in my past. And you can do the same. So yeah. So number 14, something I wish I knew is that oftentimes you dislike a map because you're bad at a map. And this isn't always true, but I find this more true than you think, where mainly win rates will reflect your likes or dislikes of something subconsciously, because all of us like to win. And if you're losing on a map a lot, you will start to dislike it. You'll say, oh, this map sucks, it's terribly designed, I hate this map. But really, it's because you just can't win on the damn thing. And oftentimes, this is because you're approaching the map wrong, or you're playing like a different character than you normally play. So I want you to think of it more like a problem to solve. If you have a map you really dislike, think like, why do I dislike this map so much? Is there a way I can play this map to get more wins? Focus on maxing out your win rate, and then maybe if you're like cracked on that map, you're popping off, you're dominating, and you still dislike the map, I'd be like, okay. But at the very least, you took a really close look at why you disliked it, not just specifically the fact that you disliked it and then you just kind of overrid it or just like disregarded it. Now, number 15 is something that I even make sure that I do myself, and you should as well. Never believe you figured it all out. Way too many players, and this is myself included, think that they have all the answers. And a lot of times you don't. A lot of times things change. A lot of times you thought that you were making the right play, or you thought a certain interaction worked a certain way, and you were wrong. And you also thought that maybe certain characters countered others, when later on you realize that they don't really counter others in the way that you imagined. It's okay to believe something and then change your mind later. It's okay to not have it all figured out. And I would implore you to not make up hard rules in your head about Overwatch, and make sure that you are still always a little bit putty, where you can take in new information, you can change your opinion on things, you can find things that specifically work for you, and never believe that you figured everything out. Now, number 16 is a little bit of a personal one, but I want you, or I would encourage you, this is something that I wish I really knew at the start, is you should try to be social and active in Overwatch. One of the things that I really credit Overwatch for is meeting some of the best people I've ever known. I have been playing Overwatch for a long time, and all the people that I've met online, many people that I work with now, my editor, a lot of great people I actually met through Overwatch, and they really impact my life today. And you can meet people that you'll grind with, get better with, reach goals with. And honestly, if you're playing so much time in Overwatch, why not try to make the best of it, right? Don't be like this awkward shell that is afraid to talk to people, afraid to put your personality out there, and afraid to, connect with anybody, right? In Overwatch, it's a great way to do that, and I would highly, highly suggest it. I know this is a little bit of a different tip, but I do think it's very, very important. Number 17, getting good at Overwatch makes you someone that can get good at anything. And this is something that I really wish I understood, because at times I would be like, oh, am I wasting my time trying to get good at Overwatch? Like, is this really the best use of my time? Should I be doing something else? But through all the trial and error and hardships and learning, I got good at something that few people could get good at, right? And I didn't really think it mattered that much. But now that I'm, doing a lot of different professional stuff, I'm really kind of trying to pave my own way, trying to make money online, and just having to learn new skills every single day. I promise you that what I learned in Overwatch just has made me able to get good at things a lot quicker, able to commit to something, able to grind something, able to understand that I'm the problem, able to take personal responsibility. A lot of these things are things that actually help you get good at everything, not just other games, but just skills and talents, because sucking sucks, right? No one likes to start something and be bad. No one likes to be bad at anything, but Overwatch teaches you that it's okay to be bad, or you have to be bad to get good, right? You have to be really bad, and even when you get good, you realize that you're not good enough at a lot of things, or you're not good compared to the people that are really good. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. And I think Overwatch teaches us this lesson about life, that some people kind of just let escape them, and they allow, you know, the journey to feel like it's useless, but I promise you it's not. It's not useless to try to get good at anything. Speaking of which, kind of tied into that, number 18 is that you'll only see your true skill once you get good enough. It's really, really easy to over or undervalue yourself, but the reality of it is you're never going to know how good you are at anything until you get good enough to see the people at the next level or the people around you, right? When I first got to Grandmaster way back in Overwatch 1, I realized that I was actually at the bottom of a mountain, a very, very large mountain. It was like I finally got to see the mist clear, right? And I just got to a new plateau. I was like, oh, man, I'm close to the top of the mountain. But nope, the mountain's like fucking Everest. It's like way, way, way high. And I thought I was close to the top, but I really wasn't. I wasn't even close. And this is kind of true with pretty much everything. You see it all the time with like someone watching like an MMA fight or a boxing fight. They're like, oh my God, I could do that. I could hit that. That's insane. But then like once you go to a gym for a little bit, then you go and you look at like an actual MMA fighter or boxing and you're like, oh my God, they're insane. You know, you like actually know what you're lacking. Like you see it now. And before you were just like delusioned with like, oh, I could do that. But you really couldn't. And you didn't even know that you couldn't. So yeah, and this is a really important thing. And it also applies to real life as well. Now, number 19 is something that I really wish I would have done back when I first started playing Overwatch and just games in general. And it's, in my opinion, you should act in game only how you would act with everyone watching. I know that like a lot of people want to use gaming as like some place to like just say what you want to say, act like you're a psychopath, and like really kind of let go of all like the normal way you act, right? But like looking back on some of the crazy ways I acted, how emotional I would get, the way that I would rant at people, complain, get mad, whatever the case may be, I feel like the way that I was portrayed is not how I should have been, right? I should have been my best self. I should always be my best self. But I allowed the fact that I was playing a game, I allowed the fact that I'm just grinding in like this isolated chamber to mold me into something that I'm like, it's okay to act like a man-child when, you know, when I'm playing a game, right? But if you keep going down this path, right, you end up like someone like Metro. I'm just kidding. But really though, make sure that you try to be your best self, even when you're, you know, anonymous behind a game. I think it's actually important to try and just embody who you want to be at all times, or else you could very easily become someone you don't want to be because you're posing as that person. You know, anyways, that's probably a little bit too inspirational for a tips and tricks video. But the last tip, and this is the shameless plug, coaching helps. Coaching really helps. I have a coaching link down below. And yeah, when I really, really wanted to get good at Overwatch, I was kind of struggling in Masters for a while, and I got coaching, and I shot right up to Grandmaster. And it was just as simple as that. Coaching really helps. Having someone able to look over your shoulder and see what you cannot see, it's really great. Yeah, so yeah, I would definitely suggest you getting coaching if you're ready to take that next step, or if you're having trouble climbing outside of the videos and outside of the grinding. I'm definitely here to help. But anyways, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the things I had below. And I love each and every one of your faces. Thank y'all for being here for a year. I mean, it's been a year since I've been posting, but yeah, I'll catch y'all next time.